The Paperclip Murders, Chapter 18. The beginning of the somewhere near the slightly, mostly more than half of the end. I really need a break. I mean, a vacation to someplace that's warm and tropical, filled with a palpable absence of anything remotely clown-faced or Russian. Someplace like Stravinsky's calendar happily displays. But that's not about to happen anytime soon. I'm more likely to get a break in my neck or back. But I'm getting ahead of myself. After the Royal Rumble in Clown Alley, I realized that I was more injured than I had first noticed. Probably the adrenaline pumping through my system, or maybe it's the pure booze I've got for blood. Dracula would be on an eternal bender around me. At any rate, my arm was aching from the pipe, and I needed to stumble off to a payphone and call for police intervention. Problem was, when I got back to the heap of circus freak that I'd left, one of them was missing. And dollars to donuts, you can bet which one. Well, the old blue boys came around and scooped up the rest, and I heard them mention something that turned my normally 98.7 degrees down to about a 0.2. A clown mafia. What a hellish world it is that something that inhuman could even exist. I shuddered involuntarily and barely kept the bile down, shaking one of the Flatfoot's hands as I got my statement. Then I took a cab from there. The ride was long, and I had a lot to think about, but I remembered suddenly that I still needed to call Woodchuck and give him the lowdown, have him shut himself up in some place completely free of paperclips and crazy threats. I told the cabbie to pull over next to the first blag I saw, then leaped out like Fred Astaire and let my lips do the walking. The dulcet tones of the secretary floated over the receiver into my ear, inducing a bit of a twitch in my leg. "Pillar and pillar, Woodchuck's office," she sang out. I slipped my smile off and tried to press it through the phone. "Hey, doll. Carrington Gray here. I need to speak to your boss. Pronto. Put me through, and here's to you, kid." I could swear the secretary tried to suppress a girlish giggle as she spoke back. "Mr. Gray, Mr. Woodchuck left early for the day. I'll have him ring you back first thing." I frowned and mumbled acceptance of this, absently hanging up the phone when I heard the click on the other end. The cabbie was waiting, probably hoping I'd reach old age before his bill quit escalating, so I hopped back in the automobile and threw directions at him for my place of residence. When one has been involved in high-speed chases, clown fights, poisonous paperclips, and other lunatical events, home seems like the best place to regroup. Of course, it would have to be me to entirely disprove that theory. The cab dropped me at the curb like a raven targeting a Buick, and I walked up to my door with the weariness that normally comes from a hard day's work, and from being hit with a pipe. I lifted the key to my lock, and was perturbed when the door suddenly slipped away, with one of those creaks that you only find in old horror movies, where the hero is about to be attacked by a headless badger, or whatever it is the kids watch these days. Darkness, inside my own residence, stared back out the door at me, and for the life of me I don't know why my leg decided that that was a good time to take a step forward, but it did, and drug the rest of my body with it. And there I was, standing in my foyer, looking across the room at my beaten-up couch, upon which sat the ugliest minotaur-bodied Russian I'd ever not wanted to see. Everyone remember Yurov, right? Balislavich sat beside him, cradling what appeared to be a disgruntled sledgehammer, and something's hand closed over my shoulder from a shadow behind me, gluing me to the spot. Well, ginger me running. Yurov grated through his teeth, while gnawing on a toothpick that was probably made from baby. "You don't have the money for me, eh, Gray? You must want a makeover, yes?" I could only manage a half sigh in an attempt to start explaining whatever it was I was going to try to explain, but he cut me off with a snort and stood, Balislavich with him. It was not at all a time for humor, but I couldn't help the fleeting imaginary glimpse of the both of them in leotards, dancing Swan Lake, and I nearly chuckled. The sledgehammer fixed me with a bloodshot stare, indicating it was hoping to get busy soon, and I pursed my lips. And then I heard from outside the most unlikely sound I would ever have felt relief in hearing, the tinkling music of circus freaks. I passed a look back over my shoulder through my open door to see several ice cream trucks and one of those ridiculous little clown cars pulling up to a stop in my street in front of my house, and the glimmer of an idea came to me. "Yurov," I spoke with haste. "Those clowns out there are trying to take the money I have to pay you with." Yurov's bullish eyes scanned my face, then slid past me to the clowns now clambering out of unlikely places all over the cars, and he grunted. "So? I take my money, and you deal with happy child men." I took a step back from him, crossing my threshold, and the clowns began yelling insults at me. And then I saw him, Sow Killer, amongst the 5 or 6 other wildly painted men brandishing clubs and shotguns. "You sorry son of a gun!" I yelled at him, and then for good measure, "You killed Grand Ave Sow, best sausage vendor in this burg!" From behind me I heard the intake of breath from Balislavich, and Yurov grunted again, this time sounding more inquisitive. "Sow is dead?" Yurov rumbled, and the sledgehammer chirped in the other Russian's hands. "I like that guy. Good sausages." From behind me I heard Sow Killer announce to his friends, "That's the guy put Joe in the clink!" And the air crackled with the impending cries of the Valkyries. It was simple after that. Yurov spit his toothpick out and stepped forward past me, fully onto the porch. Something did the same on his left, and Balislavich did on his right. The sight of the 3 Russian juggernauts caused some murmurs of unrest amongst the honkers, and Yurov brandished a pistol to show he meant business. They shouldn't have hurt Sal. And then I let a round loose from Retribution's muzzle, shattering the windshield of the clown car that Sow Killer was standing against, and all Hades broke loose. Guns began Morse coding themselves all over. Someone produced a Chicago typewriter for extra punctuation, and clown faces went kersplattering as the sledgehammer began screaming an old Russian war song, or maybe something reserved for weddings. It was absolutely pure hell. I dove for cover off the porch like a linebacker attempting to pulverize the quarterback, flying into the shrubbery as bullets perforated the walls of my humble abode and painted epitaphs in the air behind clown and Russian alike. It seemed like hours passed, with angry hornets vocalizing along with the cries of men, but it must have been no more than a few minutes, when the inevitable silence trumpeted down over everything, and the shrieks of the Valkyries diminished into the heavens. I rose from my plot and surveyed the carnage. And this is where all young pups and genteel ladies should stuff cotton firmly into their ears, because it's about to be unpleasant. Dead men lay everywhere, like little toy decorations scattered amongst the wrappings of a recently passed Christmas. Blood mingled with glass, and a few dying groans were weakly heard as I approached the mangle of flesh and automobile. Behind me, I heard a neighbor shout through his window, "I'm a-calling the police!" But I wasn't listening. Yurov was curled over himself in a puddle of his own life, breath just about non-existent, and as I crouched to get a better look at him, his eyes rolled lazily in my direction. His lips flapped like they were rehearsing some long-forgotten speech, and about the only thing I got out of him was, "My money." I shook my head and stood. Poor Rusky would never see his hard-earned cash now. Dead men don't spend. I looked for Sow Killer, passing Balislavich slumped over the hood of the clown car, and something behind me up on the porch steps. And then I found him, cradled against the wheel of one of the trucks they brought. He should have been able to breathe a lot easier with all those extra holes in his chest, but the sound was ragged and forced. As pale as he was, his face got even more pale when he saw me, looming over him like the ghost of Christmas Never. He had a couple of minutes tops, and I'm not proud to say it, but I didn't forget to ask him questions this time, and I asked him hard.